As a camp director, have you ever asked yourself, how can I better incentivize my staff to take part and excel at this job? Hello, Camp Mavericks. It's Travis. Welcome to the CampHacker podcast. As I said, my name is Travis Allison. I am a summer camp marketing and strategy consultant, and I am so pleased that you're here to join us today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. I'm a social worker and the camp director of Camp Highlight, which is a sleepaway camp for kids who have LGBTQ plus parents. It has been voted as the best camp in the world.
Wow. My name is Joe Richards, and I'm the executive director at Pierce Williams Summer Camp and Retreat Facility located in Iona, Ontario. We're part of the United Church of Canada's camping network of 55 camps across the country, and I have been here way too long.
Hi, y'all. My name is Darby Dame, and I am the Director of Marketing and Communications at Camp High Rocks in Brevard, North Carolina. We're an all-boys adventure camp focused on skill progression and non-competitive games.
Amazing. We're so grateful to have you here, Darby. Welcome. People may know Darby from appearing on Go Camp Pro's Beyond Camp podcast, or from her part in the Tool of the Week newsletter, or for being a very active moderator of the Facebook Summer Camp Professionals group. Welcome, Darby.
Thank you.
Darby, how did you get started in summer camp?
Well, I grew up going to camp, actually a camp 15 miles from where I work right now, an all-girls camp. And I think I knew my senior year of high school that camping was what I wanted to do full time. And so in college, got a teaching degree knowing I was never going to teach, I was going to camp, and stumbled across the camp I work at now for fall programs and said, okay, I'll go work there in the fall. And they were hiring an office manager, and they picked me. They secretively interviewed me at lunches, and I had no clue while I had my kids. And I've been here for the last 5 years.
Amazing. Oh, we're grateful that you're joining us today. We want to spend some time today talking about incentives for staff. And I want to open this whole discussion up by saying, hey, everybody listening, you need to pay your staff more. And I know that for a lot of you are going to roll your eyes like, we just can't afford to pay our staff more. And I get that. Some of you are not paying your staff at all, depending on what your program is. And for both of those camps, we have some good ideas. But I know this isn't only summer camps cross to bear, but I think it would be smart for us as an industry to work with other people involved in childcare to to improve people's value that they place on childcare and child development. That's universal. So with that out of the way, I thought we could spend some creative time today talking about other ways to incentivize your staff. I don't mean this is a replacement for pay. I mean, this is to help staff understand that they are valued, or to support when they make good decisions, and we want to reward that. What are some interesting and creative ways that you can do that? And Chris, I wonder if you would mind starting us off thinking about at Highlight, what are some of the ways that you've been creative about rewarding and incentivizing your staff?
Sure. First of all, I want to comment on what you said about we should all be paying our staff more. I 1000% agree. And we often say this at Camp Highlight, and we tell them this: we can't possibly pay you for the work that you're doing. There's just, because the number amount would put us out of business like seconds after we decided we were going to pay everyone. And I full-throatedly agree with you about and I think in society, we do not really take childcare seriously. We always think childcare is an afterthought. Yeah, just stick with my kid with someone so I can go to work or I can go on vacation. And it's actually a skill. It's a discipline. It's a profession, and it's what we're all doing. It's babysitting isn't just babysitting. It's a lot more than that. So that's my 2 cents. What do we do at Camp Highlight? Well, given that we can't pay the cast, like it's a reality show. Given that we can't pay the staff that much, we really lean into one. We say this every time. This is coming up now because hiring season's now. We say this all the time. Like, we're about to introduce you to your new best friends. Like, these are people you're going to know for the rest of your life. Like, we are gathering a group of people who you are going to love. So for some of the staff who are coming in, that's really attractive to them. They are young people, and meeting other people is sort of its own currency. The other thing that we try to do, the directors really try and do, is give them feedback about who they like, where they're at on a professional level. After the interviews we do with staff, we're like, okay, great, thank you. The interview's over. Then we always ask, like, can we give you feedback on how you did? And then we'll just tell them, like, this has nothing to do with whether you're going to get this job or not. I just want to, as someone who hires people, I want you to know what I saw and just, give you a bit of constructive feedback, which is also like technically part of the interview process. Because if they respond well to that,
how they respond,
that's a check for them, right? For as far as hiring them. Yeah. So that's one of the ways that we do it. When they're actually at camp and afterwards, we keep in contact with them during the year. We celebrate them on Slack. We used to have a Facebook group, but no one's on Facebook, but we have like a Slack group. We celebrate people's achievements. The camp will, for a lot of our staff are artists, and they have Kickstarter projects and stuff. And we are always the first one to help them fund that, letting them know that, you're part of our family and this is what we do. And, for some of them, they get more money like that during the year than they do for the week of camp. But that's just two of the things that we do.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
How about for you, Darby?
One of the things, I like to kind of group some of this in what is going to cost you money and what is free and just going to cost you time. I mean, time is money. There's that too, but grouping it in two different. So hitting something that doesn't cost us any money, but it brings them back to the why they're there. And it's so easy. Most of you can input this year. It is midsummer when you're feeling that, we have 2, 3, 4 week sessions. So 4 weeks in July is our midsummer. So 3 weeks into that, your campers are a little starting to fight a little more and getting a little more on your nerves. So that week, that third week, midsummer, we pull out parent surveys from our session beforehand, and we read them back, feedback, the positive, this went so well, my kid was terrified, and now his counselor was awesome. And we share those. And if there's something really good about a counselor, we'll hand them a little note with what that parent said. And the response to that, the reminder, the incentive of this is why I'm doing this, that's not just us saying why, but it's a parent of a kid you impacted and you knew, is priceless. They're often tears at that meeting. And
that's great. Thank you. What do you think, Joe?
I think a lot. I think that the idea, it's great to say pay more, but pay what? Right? So that's one of the challenges I've had with this movement, that people, especially on the Facebook group, they're like, pay more. Well, that's great. How much is enough? Like, what is enough? Is $70,000 a year enough? Right? Is that the point of happiness for full-time people? Right? That's research and companies have done that. The question becomes with staff, it's you can never pay them for what they do, right? You can never pay them for the passion
what their work is worth.
Or the passion that you want them to show. Right? You can talk to people, and if pay, because I think for most summer camp professionals, if pay is the first question on a summer staff's mind, then that clouds the rest of our decision making.
1000%. Yeah.
Because it shows us that they're thinking about the money, and we all grew up at camp not getting the money, and still may not get the money as full-time people, right? But the idea, so there's a few things to think through on this. The way that we treat our staff speaks volumes above what we pay our staff. They're both things are very important. And I took a look at this from full-time staff to summer staff as well, because if you employ full-time staff, there are easy bonuses you can give that are, some of them are free, some of them are very low cost. So I know this because I've recently gone through some staffing changes here at Pierce Williams, and We give all of our full-time staff a Costco card. We pay the $60 a year for them to have a Costco card, because what's $60 a year on, on your budget? Not much, but to them, it might mean something super awesome. We also allow our staff, if they have kids or grandkids, to send those kids to camp for free. Not a discount, because we're a week-long camp, for free. We just say, great, what weeks do you want to come? Awesome. And I hired a new bookkeeper recently, and I said, oh yeah, and just so you're aware, you'll get kids go to camp for free. And she's like, what? I said, your kids can go to camp for free. She said, and she looks at me and she goes, what about family camp? Because she's a family camp camper. And I said, yeah, your family can come to family camp for free. Like, to me, I haven't lost a ton. I'm not giving up a bed spot for that one camper, especially at Pierce Williams. We know that we never run at capacity. Capacity for us would be 180 campers a week, which is not my goal by any way, shape, or means until we charge a lot more money for camp. And if I charge more money for camp, then I can pay staff more. But I also think for summer staff, it's some of the things. I had 2 staff in for training yesterday to work with farm workers who are on site, to take some load off of our full-time staff who are still here. And they were talking about their bucket list, right? Like, by coming and helping us now, they get to drive the Gator, they get a radio, they're like, these are things we get to check off the bucket list. And I'm like,
I'm on the radio list.
Well, and that's a bonus for them. And I handed them a set of keys, and they're like, what? We get keys? And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't want to come up Saturday morning and let you in to the one bathroom you're allowed to use, because every other bathroom at camp is being used for quarantine. When we run a normal summer, I think about things like our staff party that we do at the end of the year, our staff trip that we coordinate, right? The idea of small staff gifts, and the opportunity to better themselves and earn volunteer hours. All of those are things that we know they need. So in Ontario, they need volunteer hours. We can give those to them. We can give them, a staff party that might cost us under $1,000 for 70 people to be at for a couple of hours. But the feeling they get when they come to Joe's backyard for staff party is like, ooh. And David Gill, who's a friend of the show, David Gill from who was at Ferncliff before he retired, he told us a story when I was touring Arkansas camps years ago that they do a dinner at the end of staff training, like a fancy get dressed up, not at the end of the summer, but at the end of staff training. And they do it him and his wife put it on for them, because they want them to understand how special they are to camp. And I think that those are some of the small things we can do to show people and give them that appreciation.
That's amazing. One of the things that I said a lot on here and think about an awful lot is kind of the meta lessons of all of the things that happen at camp. And part of the reinforcement of you're valuable to us as a camp community is really important. And Joe, you reminded me of this because our camp our kitchen is run by our camp. We don't contract that out. And so those people are staff members. And so at the beginning of the summer, when there's staff training, those people are part of staff training because the alumni comes up to free them up to be a part of it. So we value you as a staff member. We're not going to keep you in the kitchen for that time when those fun staff get to know you things. Alumni commit to that. The other piece is, and this is the meta lessons that we're trying to reinforce over and over again, is at the end of the summer, kids go home in the morning, staff does a little cleanup of the site, spend some time off, hanging out, having fun, and then there's a fancy dinner for them. Well, that fancy dinner is put on by alumni and the board. And the alumni and the board are in fancy dress. They're invited to come in fancy dress. They are served. We bring out fancy plates, china plates and stuff for them. They haven't eaten on all summer. And for us, the symbol of having alumni say your job is so important that we will come up to camp for this. The board, that makes sense. I think a lot of people would expect that that's what a board would do. You would hope that that's what a board would do. But the symbolism of having alumni there to serve them as a thank you for their sacrifice, I think is one of those big lessons that we want our staff to know from our camp community. So a bunch of different things that we can do.
I say though, like even when you were describing that, it's not a sacrifice. That's the thing. I never think of asking.
For sure not.
We're not asking the staff to sacrifice anything. Granted, we're paying them like a couple of $100 a week for backbreaking 19-hour-a-day work. But I think that kind of thing, the way that we pitch it to them is important. We talk a lot about, just explicitly and implicitly, how once you work at Camp Highlight, you're kind of like a brand ambassador. Like you go out into the world and you get to say, oh, there's this thing that I created. Like I said at the top of the show, we were voted like best camp in the world by me and the staff. But that's not the point. The point is that that vote happened and it's real, And so like they get to go out there and be like, I work at the best camp at the world. It's not a big deal. It's called Camp Highlight. And, it sounds weird, but there's cachet to it, especially because in some of the circles that they move in their schools or wherever, especially like queer circles, when they mention Camp Highlight or say that they're part of it, there is some sort of social cachet that they get from them, from that. And so, I was just listening to you talk, and it's like, I just think the language is important around our staffing, because we're all so aware that we'd have to pay them. I mean, if we paid them minimum wage for every hour, they'd walk, like their pockets would be full of cash, because we ask them to work like basically even when they're sleeping. It's like in the middle of the night, if someone wakes you up, go to the bathroom, you got to go, and we can't afford to pay people 24 hours a day. But
there is this idea, Chris, that one of the ways we can incentivize camp is to set clear boundaries to help them, right? Because one of the ways people burn out at camp is by this expectation that some camp professionals still have, that you have to be present 24 hours a day. You have to be doing stuff. And I was taught a very clear lesson when I started here at Pierce Williams about the need to not be at camp, because I had small kids of my own that I needed to be with. And my wife was a camp director. So we made choices to be like, great, well, me as the executive director, I don't need to go to campfire every night. I don't need to do those things. And especially now, the talk has changed over 20 years, that when we talk so much about self-care, if we don't model that ourselves, we're doing our staff a disservice. But you can incentivize them by helping them with, okay, here's what self-care looks like, and here are some of the tools you can use, and here are some of the things that have worked for me, right? It's this idea of just passing on wisdom that isn't camp-based to staff so that they grow to be better people, right?
that's the value.
This has always been my thing. I want you to leave as a better person. That's it, right? If you leave and you're a worse person, I have failed dramatically.
And we try to do that with our campers. So of course we should do that with our staff.
Absolutely.
Like it's such an easy transition that we should be making even more in staff training, not just the one session on how they add it in their LinkedIn bio, or like, how they add camp. That should be continued.
Exactly.
And I think that's, yes, I think we're all agreeing on this point, like absolutely treating them as employees, but also sort of like interns, right? Giving them the feedback they need to be successful, sure, at this task, but just successful in the world. Whether you move on to do camping or childcare education or something that's related, just like giving someone feedback about how they show up or how you experience them as an employer and someone makes decisions could be completely revelatory for a young person. I mean, not for nothing, but like when you're 18, 19, or 20, I mean, this might be a shock for any young people listening to this podcast, but like they don't know a lot of stuff. They don't have a lot of worldly experience. And here we come in, like being loving and accepting and wanting to tell them, I don't know where else you would get something like that. Can I ask you all a question?
Is it relevant to what you just said, Chris? Because I have something to tag on.
No, you should follow up. But after this, I have a question. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget.
All right. I can see others have ideas too, but relate to this thing. I think it's important and it's a great incentive and it's one of those subtle things, but I think staff should leave with life skills from us. You know, how to introduce yourself. And part of it's just how to talk to other adults. But I can't tell you the number of times, and it's, you know, one of the great privileges of being a long-term camp director is that I have been to more of our camp staff's weddings than we can count. And as a part of that, more than half a dozen times, someone has mentioned, as Darby was miming, someone has mentioned that we taught them how to shake hands and that has gotten them jobs. Because that is one of the jokes. You work for us, you learn how to shake hands, look people in the eye, give a nice, warm, firm handshake. And that's not something people practice, but it is definitely something that is noticed in the workplace. So when you were staff for Travis and Beth, you leave the summer with all these camp skills. You know how to look people in the eye and introduce yourself and shake hands. You know how to waltz. You leave knowing how to waltz. You leave knowing how to change a tire and check your oil in your car. All of those things are life skills that were essential to us. Yes, the resume piece, the LinkedIn stuff, as Darby said, but we made sure to take time and make sure that those things that people wouldn't necessarily think of, but it's stuff that they leave. That's an incentive for working for us, is that stuff.
Travis,
Yeah.
can you describe to me how waltzing as a life skill has enhanced your entire life? Please go.
Well, it definitely has. If you have a partner, then the ability to waltz is one of those things.
That's
that
wherever you are, in the
moves.
street, at the supermarket. Just break it out. Okay. I'm gonna write that down.
Anything. We dance in the kitchen all the time.
It's
I mean,
the-
that's what
it's
I
the-
learned was learning ballroom dancing in a kitchen from my mother.
It's the
And
waltzing
Beth's parents
scene.
competed in ballroom dance, so she and I both love to ballroom.
Chris, as someone who lives in New York, if you were to walk into Union Station and see the actual scene from the Fisher King of the waltzing happening in real life, wouldn't you want to join in?
I'd be afraid of messing it up. I'd be like, no, you all seem to got it. You
I
all
watched
went to
that
the
movie
rehearsal.
Still, I
I'm just
love
gonna
it.
take pictures.
It's the
what-
idea of how to plunge a toilet, right? Like these are the life
Yes.
skills you actually need. How do you plunge a toilet? You need to know that, because if you don't, why would I call a plumber to unplug my toilet? That's my question.
And so to piggyback off Travis there, it's those life skills. And then we have also found, you know, in every interview, we ask, you know, what are your personal goals for this summer? What do you want to get out of this summer? And so often it is, I want to get better at an adventure activity. And we're an adventure camp, so that makes sense. But it's not typically one that they're already versed in. It is, never tried mountain biking, I want to try it. So some of our goals here is helping staff help facilitate that. So not even just life skills, but also the fun camp skills I see other people doing. Like you guys said, the walkie-talkies, the the gator, I can drive the gator. Also for us really applies to our adventure sports.
Chris, you had a thought that we took a little step back. We wanted to come back around to you.
Just a question, because when it comes to staff and compensation, you know, back in the 90s when I was a camp counselor, tipping was a really big thing. And I feel like it fell out of vogue, but I don't really have any basis to know about that because I've been running my own camp for the past 11 years. Is that still a thing? Are parents still tipping individual counselors at the end of sessions? And if not, if so, I'm just wondering, like the three people on this call, is that something that you think is helpful or something that we should bring back if it's gone? Or what I'm just curious what your thoughts are on it.
My thoughts after being in Australia for 40 days a few years ago is that tipping should be outlawed everywhere. People should be paid a wage that makes sense. And when I look at a menu, I should know what I'm paying taxes in. It's amazing. In Ontario, at least in church camping, tipping has never been a big thing at all. There are some benefits that are given occasionally, but in reality, I just think that what you can say to parents is, if you feel like you've got an exceptional service, why don't you make a donation to the campership fund or to the camp, right? To something to help other kids get to camp. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say the two camps I've worked at, tipping is not encouraged. I mean, people can. We don't deny. We don't say turn down a tip, but it's probably 1% of parents tip in the summer. It's not common, and I think in any of the camps in our area. But I think it's also regional. It also
yes, definitely.
And I would say in Western North Carolina, it's not. Which is, in our camps, I would see it as the place it could be, because a lot of camps in this area are very expensive camps where you can see that tipping might come into play a little more. And it doesn't.
Yep.
That's interesting to me. We actively try to make sure that no one gets tipped, because we just don't think it's very fair for the parent to show up and make the assessment in like 3 or 4 minutes that this counselor deserves money.
Right.
When the other counselors are working just as hard. It's interesting. It used to be all the rage back when I was young and working in camps, and I noticed that it seemed to be less of a thing. But I'm with you, Joe. I think tipping is something that we should just get rid of. I think it's embarrassing and debasing, but we'll do another podcast on that sometime.
Embarrassments and debasements of working at summer camp.
I'm sure that is a podcast that will get listened to. Embarrassments and debasements. And we're going to be drinking during this podcast as well. So sign on, pay the fee to watch it live.
That's going to be
we're
a
not
new
recording
podcast.
it. Yeah.
A side note on tipping.
Darby?
If we do the full-time staff, if someone hands us a tip in the summer, like, as kind of a camp tip, we put it in like a pot for food at the end of the summer, or we put it towards their, we put it towards some kind of food event for the staff. And that could, if you're looking at tipping and trying to change the culture, it could be that's kind of how it moves towards.
I was thinking, and we're getting near to the end of the topic, time for the topic. So I would encourage you all to think of a couple more good ideas that you've seen and you want to share. One of the things that I had put down in my prep is there's a lot of studies, and this is comes out of kids' relationship to parents, and I think it's relevant to us in our own unique way, that when kids are asked what they would like from their parents, the most common answer is always time and relationships. And as a camp leader, I think it is something that we can use to develop good relationship with our staff, and that's as simple. I've talked about it a dozen times or more on the show. That's as simple to me as keeping a staff list and doing a little check when I just check in with people. How are you doing today? How are your kids last night? What are you looking forward to? Something as simple as that. But if you're a first-year counselor and you don't know the director very well, that's an incentive, because it makes you feel noticed and appreciated. And it might be something, I know of other camps or other camp leaders where it is a reward or something that is won at a fun little auction, something where you get to spend go to a movie with the camp director. One of the best staff auctions we ever did, one of the things that the item went raised a lot in this auction was allowing a staff member to come to Beth at my house and have a bath. So it was just time by herself we're all showers at camp, just the only bath on site. She's like, I could come to your house and spend an hour and a half in a bath. Absolutely. Like, it was just time away from kids, time away from other people. It might be time with your friends. Like, it's just time is important, and it is something that we can do to reward and notice people in lots of different ways.
The one thing that we were thinking about, I had not shared this with the rest of the team, so it's breaking here first. If my staff is listening to this, we may not do this, but what I was thinking about is like getting like an Airbnb for the week of camp off campus somewhere, and like the admin staff just takes turns like rotating in, so everyone gets one full night sleeping in a real bed, from like 7 p.m. and they have to be back by the end of breakfast the next day. I was thinking that would be a really great incentive, just sort of like, thank you, we know the beds are terrible, so thank you. And the other thing I wanted to say, just my last bit on incentivizing staff, the power of a letter of recommendation, especially if you are someone who is under 22 and you don't have a lot of work experience, and that's something that you can sell in an interview. If you do well and I want to support you because we both want you to succeed, then of course I'll generate a letter of recommendation that you can take to your school, that you can take to your job. That's great currency for a young person who's trying to break into a career.
Okay, I'm going to rapid fire through a couple. I've got a list.
Love it. Do it.
One is casual dress days, especially for a day camp where you have a uniform. Can you make it that it's casual dress day for everyone that day? That is such a joy. Costume week help. So when I was a counselor, we had a full costume week and they handed us one bandana and it worked for every costume theme day that week. We could transition into a pirate, there was multiple things. So that was easy. It allowed us to get involved. We didn't have to pay for a costume and it was one item. I would also mention, we cannot not mention Camp Codes podcast number 78. It is all about 12 ways you can make joy for your staff. And Beth mentions asking them at staff training what brings them joy in multiple ways. And if you go listen to that, it's an easy thing to add into staff training that you can use later to incentivize. And then my last is late night dinner. So this summer, we normally have done last week of each session, we do a late night staff dinner. We cook it and then they come on by. This year, because we're not going to have all the staff in one place at a time, it's probably going to be a grab and go items. But if you're not an overnight camp, maybe that's breakfast when they come in that morning that they can grab and go. It's a fun way that everybody likes a little snack, especially if you're an overnight camp and you place it on a day where dinner is not counselor's favorites. It's even more appreciated.
Tired people are always hungry.
That made me think, Darby, those are all great. I went to director's camp a few times, and one of the things that Scott Arizala and Stephen Chris did was they had raffles at meals. And so tickets and things. And what we started doing here at Pierce Williams when Iskis was here as my camp director, we started to take all of that swag that we get at camp shows, right? You go around the exhibit hall and they hand out all that stuff. We just put it in a bin and have staff raffles and allow them to come up and take whatever they want out of the bin. Because I don't need another water bottle.
Right.
I don't need, and so I recently got some T-shirts from a conference that I spoke at. The T-shirts arrived, no word of a lie, a month and a half late. That's thanks to the United States Postal Service. And I'm like, well, I don't need them, so I'll put them in. At this point, it's just a bin where you're like, great, we'll let staff take it home. Or if it's just a great way to make them feel like you care, even if you don't. No, I'm just teasing.
Joe, don't put it out there like that.
Joe, I gotta know, do you call staff raffle? Do you just call it staffle when you run it?
No, but we could.
Yeah, Darby does. Nice.
We do.
Or
yes, staffle.
Staffle.
Love it. Good.
I would come up with a different name. We have never been successful in continually doing it. I love the idea. And one of the other simple ways to incentivize staff, and I've said this, is the idea of making sure they feel encouraged all summer long, right? And it's not just you. This is this idea of having everybody know that it's their role to encourage people when they're having a good day, when they're having a bad day. Many years ago, I did a project called Encouragement Beads, where you would get 20 beads at the beginning of the summer, 20 wooden beads, and you would paint your own design on it. So mine was a yellow bead with a black footprint. And when I saw you do something amazing or saw you having a hard day, because I don't always have time to sit and chat with people, and it might not be in my nature to sit and chat with people about how they're feeling, but I can give you a bead and be like, you got this, right? Or I can place it in their guitar case and they find it later, and you collect the beads, and people started trading beads. And once they ran out of their 20, they were giving people other people's encouragement beads. And it was this whole system where people felt at least that somebody was paying attention to to everything, good, bad, ugly.
That's cool.
One of the camp directors that I look up to most is Larry Bell from here in Ontario from Camp Robin Hood, and Larry's famous for having like a challenge coin, but something that he made that's custom burned onto a tree cookie that he gives out as appreciation. And you've done something and you've been noticed by Larry when you get one of his little wooden coins, I think they call them. And never seen one, but I've heard about them. And I think it's such a smart idea. Chris, do you have any more come to mind?
No, I think I'm fresh out, and a lot of ones I was thinking of have been said already.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Although I want to just point out, because Darby talked about food, there's one night that for the staff meeting that happens after all the kids go to bed, we send someone out to get McDonald's and just dump it on the table. Counselors have burst into tears. Like, it is a big deal. Like, burst. I'm talking full sobbing, like the whole 9 yards. And those burgers are like $1 each. It doesn't cost us anything. So I fully endorse that, Darby.
Thank you. Food is always endorsed.
Absolutely. All right, before we move on to our tool of the week, I want to thank UltraCamp for supporting the CampHacker podcast and for sponsoring the show. And we want to just remind you that UltraCamp is here for their clients, and they would love to speak to you to talk to you about the needs that you have for managing the information around your kids. And UltraCamp asks, do you remember why you got into being a camp leader in the first place? Sometimes we get so caught up in the busy work of running summer camp that we forget for our own needs, why we are there. And so UltraCamp helps you get back to what you love and why you are at camp. So for them, that means not worrying about limits on your database. Things like you could get unlimited custom reports, unlimited support from them, unlimited training, and even unlimited users of all of that valuable information that helps camps run smoothly. As exclusive to CampHacker listeners, for a limited time, they are offering free setup if you're going to use UltraCamp for camp this summer. They would love to talk to you if you think all this sounds too good to be true. They want to show you a future where you have time to get back to what's really important, enjoying and appreciating summer camp. So please visit their website at summercampsoftware.com/CampHacker and set up a time to chat with them. They are looking forward to meeting you. That means for us, we are on to our tool of the week. And as we did with Darby, we do with our co-hosts every time, ask people to bring a tool that makes them a better camp director. And Darby, as our guest, I'd like to start with you. What is a tool that you recommend that other camp directors use or check out?
Absolutely. Thanks, Travis. My brain goes instantly to marketing. And so number one tool for me, and what we've been using a lot recently, is a website called hotjar.com. And it records visitors on your website. So you can watch a playback of exactly where someone's mouse is going, what page they entered, what page they exited, and what they tried to click. And for us, immediately when we put this onto our website, we found links that were dead. We found, like, everybody's trying to click on that photo and it's not a link. Like, we should make it a link.
Yeah.
And the basic is free. You get 300 recordings, but then it goes up to like $39 a month for Plus, which you get a few more. But all we've needed is the 300 recordings, and then we delete them. I think in the summer when we're a little busier, we'll probably need more than that. But it has been a wonderful way for us to check dead links, to see where people are going. If you have just built a new website, it's a great opportunity to see what's working, what's not. So it's definitely my recommendation. It's really easy and it's not too hard to put on your website.
That's great. Thank you, Darby. I think that that's often the case. People are surprised at how people actually use their website versus how we imagined it's going to be used. That's a great tool. What's it for you, Joe?
For me, it is two things. I'm sneaking in two things. The first thing,
We love it when you do that to us.
I was organizing today and rearranging an office and realized how much zip ties come into my life as a camp director to bind things together and to make things look neat and tidy. And putting two zip ties together to make them longer and to hang things. So zip ties of all sizes are super. They will always make you a better camp director. And in a worst case scenario, you can arrest someone if you have the right zip ties. Because isn't that all that those are just giant zip ties? That's what I believe they are. Somebody could tell me I'm wrong.
There are ones that are custom made for that purpose.
Okay, great. That I can purchase somewhere? Question mark. Maybe.
What is the plan here? What is
where are you going
on?
with this, Joe?
Travis, Darby, don't give him any more recommendations about where to buy these. We could be accessories.
Saying. The other, my second tool, Chris, is
Excellent.
a book. I'm going to go with a book. So I start the Alt MBA next week, and one of the books they have in their reading list right now is The Art of Possibility. And while we're talking about incentivizing things for staff, it reminded me of the idea of giving our staff an A, right? Giving them an A from the beginning of the summer so that they're not so stressed out about what they're going to get at the end. There's a bit more to it than just saying you're awesome and I'm going to make you a #1 staff, but the idea of it's a great book. I read it on a long road trip to Toronto and back in a single day because we're in lockdown, and I was picking up flooring for a flooded house. But The Art of Possibility by Rosamund Stone Zander and Benjamin Zander. So it is good.
I recommend you listen to the audiobook version of it because Ben Zander is a famous conductor and he talks about music a lot, and they have licensed the music for the audio recording. It's fun.
And that's how I listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you, Joe, I really wanted to know how you drove and read the book in
yeah,
one
there you
day,
go.
But
I am multi-talented, Darby. When you think multi-talented, you need to think Joe Richards, that guy from halfway between Detroit and Toronto.
I'll put it on a sign on my door.
It's big. Sure. I'll do the sign up for you and email you it. Okay.
Another excuse to use the scroll saw.
There you go. Joe's emailing you scroll saw stuff. Chris, what's your tool?
My tool is pretty pedestrian, but it's changing my life. It is a laminator. Go on Amazon, search laminator. They have one that's like $25, like the Amazon Basics one. When I tell you I'm laminating everything, like I can't wait to get to camp with this, like schedules, rosters, like it's all going to be clean, crisp, sharp at the edges. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. I haven't tried like if the dry erase markers work on it. Does anyone know if it will work?
Or it will, but the wet eraser is better.
Okay. So it's just great. It's great for around your house. It's even better at camp where, honestly, I cannot wait to have everything laminated on my clipboard. So when I inevitably leave my clipboard out on the field, it doesn't destroy all of my notes and papers. So I'm really looking forward to that. So buy a laminator and the laminating sheets because it doesn't just happen on its own.
Like razors, laminating sheets are pretty expensive, but
yeah,
it's better now that they're Amazon Basics ones.
Yeah, the machine is $25, but the sheets, that's how they get you. The first taste is free.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. Well, my tool of the week is a book. And my tool of the week is The Book with No Pictures by BJ Novak. Some of you may know BJ from The Office and other different cool things he's done, including he has a podcast that lots of people like. The Book with No Pictures is a kid's book. And the whole premise behind it is that it is a book to make your parents make themselves look silly. And so it is nice and simple, and it's just lots of silly things, silly noises, etc. And it's obviously to make kids laugh. And I have long been a proponent, even before I was a grandparent, I've been a proponent of collecting silly kids books because I love reading to kids. Always loved it at camp. And this is my new one. I'm really excited to read it to Bear and for him to know that what it means to have an adult be silly. But this is one that I have seen recommended many times, and I am love that book for what it's worth. So my book, again, my tool of the week is The Book with No Pictures by BJ Novak. So I want to thank the three of you for your participation today, for sharing so many good ideas, for bringing the wealth of experience that you all have to this show. If people want to follow up with you, Darby, they have any questions, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, they can email me at darby.e.dame, DAME, @gmail.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Darby. I'm so grateful you're here.
Yeah. Or just post in the Facebook, the Summer Camp Pros Facebook group. I'll see
Take Darby. Right on. Thanks, Darby.
Thank you.
Joe?
If they want to reach me, they should not ask for me in the Facebook group, although I am an admin. I applaud Darby and everybody else who does a much better job. Plus, I don't ask other people's opinion. I'll just delete comments without even caring. If you want to reach me, the best way is just to send me an email, joe@campisbetter.com. Life is good. Camp is better.
Thanks so much, Joe.
Not a problem.
Chris?
So you can find out more about Camp Highlight at www.camphighlight.com. You can follow Camp Highlight on Instagram @Camp Highlight. You can slide into my DMs on Instagram @PlanetChris1, or you can just email me, chris@camphighlight.com.
Perfect. Again, thank you to all of you. For those of you watching this on YouTube, we always appreciate if you subscribe or click a thumbs up. And if you're listening to us while you're doing the dishes or walking the dog, and you've learned something from the show, please forward this episode to a friend. It helps us get more camp people listening to the shows. And we're super grateful when you take the time and introduce us to your friends. It's wonderful. We thank you all for being here. You can find our show notes at camphacker.tv/podcast. And thanks for the evening, friends.